A reading from Written in Our Hearts, The Practice of Spiritual Transformation, the classic by Theodore J. Nottingham. Let us now examine more closely the meaning of two crucial words that have surfaced throughout this book: attention and watchfulness. They are the keys to unlocking the heart and discovering what is written within it from the beginning of time. Teachers of early Christianity defined attention as a stillness of heart unbroken by any thought. This is accomplished through watchfulness, which is a continual observance of thought at the entrance of the heart. Watchfulness is the effort of constant awareness of the thoughts, images, and desires stimulated from within and from without. This awareness keeps them from automatically claiming our full attention and taking control of our will. The clarity of attention sustained by the watch of the heart leads to an inner stability that produces an even greater intensification of watchfulness. This distancing of inner and outer stimuli from the core of our being engenders a unique quietude and serenity without which there is no spiritual consciousness. According to the masters of the inner spiritual warfare, we can further define the stages of this necessary watchfulness. 1. Watchfulness closely scrutinizes every mental image or provocation. 2. Frees the heart from the endless distraction of thoughts. 3. Continually invokes the help of higher spiritual powers. 4. Keeps us mindful of our mortality. And 5. Fixes our gaze upon spiritual reality and places the material world in proper perspective. The end result is the inner state that Christ called purity of heart, and which allows one to see God. Surely this witnessing of the sacred, this encounter with that which created us, is the purpose of all religions. Clearly, we can deduce that this purity of heart is not a moral condition, although that is a natural result of our transformation, but rather a state of presence that incorporates awareness of our moment-by-moment condition, from thoughts to muscle tensions, and relentlessly focuses on the spiritual reality beyond the visible. This remembrance of God is not merely an awareness of that vaster presence akin to the cosmic radiation behind all matter, the remnant of the Big Bang phenomenon, as scientists now suggest. This inner consciousness, free from all other stimuli, is unbroken contemplation, that is, continual prayer. There are no words, there are no thoughts, only a naked intent, a burning love for that which first loved us. In the previous chapters, we have studied the degrees of prayer, the self-observation of Gurdjieff and the meditative attitude of Durkheim, along with certain classic methods of Christian spirituality. Now we reach the summit, where the mystics of all traditions unite in a common knowledge, a oneness of consciousness and being. Here, all the teachings and practices melt away, and the individual is consumed with the reality uncovered at the core of his or her being. This state of knowing is both serene and blazing with unconditional love. This is where Christianity makes its special contribution to human evolution. We are no longer dealing with abstract thought or even enlightened understanding, the God of the philosophers. The furnace of transformation is agape, or conscious unconditional love. The infinite silence of omnipresence of the Tao, and Eastern wisdom has called it, has been penetrated. The riddle of Advaita, non-duality in the midst of seeming duality, has been solved, and in Christian terms, the spirit of the resurrected Christ has revealed itself as the root, the very root of our being. Having cleaned the window of our inner self from all the impurities we know so well, our eternal sun now shines through us, The intense effort of keeping that window clean, the watch of the heart, is now transmuted into ecstatic surrender to the unnameable light that fills our mind, heart, and soul. Few of us can sustain that state of blissful consciousness, but every one of us is called to seek for it, as it is the very purpose of our existence. The universe came into being in order to know itself. We are the witnesses of its awesome wonder and the caretakers of its countless forms. In every moment, we make the choice to raise ourselves to that level of awareness or to descend into the darkness of confusion and unhappiness. All around us, we see the results of the latter condition. Throughout this book, the process of transformation has been expressed in a variety of ways. In the end, it is up to you in your particular situation, at a particular moment, to enter the liberated state that leads to your transformation. Become watchful. Quiet your mind and body. Turn the attention of your heart in humility and yearning toward the mystery that is your source. The poet Rumi tells us to, quote, return to the root of the root yourself, end quote. All revelation and objective knowledge guide us to inward wisdom. But beyond that point, in order to achieve radical transformation into beings illumined by unconditional love, we must each make the efforts tailored to the requirements of the moment. What is in the way right now? Is it negative feelings or thoughts? Is it a case of mistaken identity where we take ourselves to be what we have invented or what is claiming our desires? Is it fascination with inward or outward images that obscure the radiance of divine light? Is it the arrogance of the rational mind against the intuitive insight, or merely infantile selfishness wanting its needs met? We become clean with the healing or relaxing of our nervous system, which in turn makes it possible to see reality from a higher vantage point. We become changed when our sense of self expands and opens in humble receptivity to that which called us into being. We become fulfilled when we are empowered to act as vehicles of the eternal love that created life, and that requires you and me to manifest its will upon planet Earth. What are the implications of such transformed life? I will list a few in random order without regard as to whether they are mundane or spectacular. For it is from the plain fabric of ordinary life that spiritual transmutation occurs. Number 1, stop hurrying. Those of us who are victims of this dreadful disease know that it is a habit that is dangerous to the health of the body. But it is even more so for the health of the spirit, as it throws us entirely off course. Frenzied activity or hyperactive thinking create a noise in our mind and sinews that utterly obliterates the consciousness of the presence of God. Be still and know that I am God remains one of the greatest revelations of the Old Testament. 2, let go. We continually find ourselves faced with situations that we resist or resent. The capacity to release that tension physically and emotionally opens us to new possibilities. Our momentary desires are transcended and we become available for new insight. Number 3, accept. This is a supreme act of surrendering our will to a higher one that brought us into the world. This effort teaches humility, endurance, and a liberation from fantasies. Carlfried Graf Durkheim tells us that to accept the unacceptable is the most powerful factor in spiritual transformation. 4, make time. Early morning or late evening have always been considered prime quality time for penetrating the depths of the spirit. While the world sleeps, a person in meditation or quiet reflection can experience extraordinary moments of regeneration. 5, value the moment. Encounters with other people waiting at a traffic light, the office coffee break, are often passed over and taken for granted. But a moment of remembrance can illuminate the most ordinary event. This is especially true in relationships to other people where spirit can meet spirit. 6. Separate. We are not our thoughts or emotions, however strong their pull may be, nor are we our ambitions and dreams. We are the background awareness in which they occur. That consciousness can ultimately unite us with the divine. 7. Recognize the invisible in the visible. The sacred is everywhere and everything. This is no religious doctrine, but scientific fact. Everything that is comes from the explosion of supernovas and from the original Big Bang that happened everywhere all at once. There's mystery upon mystery in the smallest pebble, let alone in human beings who can ponder the cause of their rising. 8. Do not fear. Our work requires that we step into the unknown and trust that we are received with open arms. To shrink back from a return to our source is to die prior to burial. Fear turns away from the yearning in our heart that will reunite us with our true identity, in which there is no darkness. Nowadays, we hear a great deal about codependency, the wounded inner child, and dysfunctional families. Psychologists such as John Bradshaw have brought to the surface a rather stunning fact about modern life. Our society is filled with emotionally crippled individuals who were traumatized in their early years. Whether these persons were victims of sexual abuse, violent alcoholics, or the tragedy of divorce, they all carry deep scars that incapacitate the primary building block of a healthy personality, the ability to trust. Across all socioeconomic lines, regardless of academic degrees, these deeply hurt individuals have lost contact with a fundamental faith in existence itself. Support groups, entire libraries of material, and workshops of all kinds are addressing these problems. Television talk shows seem to specialize in airing the intimate agony of adults whose inner child is still bleeding. Certainly many of these efforts will go a long way to heal those silent and not so silent screams that dominate people's psychology, but that is not enough. The experts tell us that the cornerstone of healthy development is a natural trust. We come into this world so utterly helpless that the nurturing love and protection of a parent is an absolute necessity, not a nice luxury, if it can be fit into the schedule. This relationship is an exact parallel to our relationship with that mysterious, unnameable power called God. The extent to which we can surrender ourselves into the arms of destiny in the certainty that unconditional love will support us even through death is the measure of how fully we will live the few decades allotted us on this planet. The trouble is that we are not merely victims of difficult childhoods that have robbed some of us of our innate ability to trust. We are victims of a society aggressively bent on imposing its view of reality upon us. And this worldview has no room for vulnerability, trust, or even hope that love sustains the universe. As consumers, we are easy bait for the sharks roaming the sea of our culture. We have all seen what happens to the prey caught in the midst of a feeding frenzy. There is little left when the beasts have satisfied their obsessive hunger. This is true of our bank accounts and for our souls as well. The subliminal and often overt messages of the media define our sense of manhood, womanhood, success, and failure. The sharks of our culture, who are masters at getting their fingers into our psyches, have replaced the Madonna who symbolized total spiritual trust for that other Madonna who symbolizes the get it while you can mentality of a hopelessly materialistic society. What then is there left to trust? Is it possible to escape the mistaken sense of safety found in a cynical relationship to life? Many people believe that this is the only intelligent way to see things. But to live in such a way is not a matter of being practical. It is a state akin to asphyxiation. Our birthright is to live in peace, joy, and trust. Others before us have proven that the harshness of life need not keep us from these gifts of existence. That is why poets and artists, lovers of beauty that is, are so important. They are cries in a wilderness of advertisements, sound bites, and despair. The teachers of wisdom from all the world's spiritual traditions urge us to take the risk of trusting the ultimate goodness of the universe. Trust in the face of all the contradictions. Trust in spite of trouble and pain. Trust even though you have been betrayed again and again. Trust because after the winter snows comes the sweetness of spring. Trust because within the noise and tumult of human life, there is a silence that heals and renews and inspires.